And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Born Marie Alfred Johnson in 1925, Freda Diesling was best known for her contributions to reviving traditional Haida art forms, including wood carving, mask carving, and totem carving. She was one of the few women carvers who mastered the medium and was partly responsible for bringing the style to an international audience. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to 2002.
With skilled hands inch their way along the wood, her knives chipping away at edges, carving through layers of birch and alder, transforming them into works of art. Freda Diesling has been doing this for the better part of her 70-some-odd years, learning, then teaching students for more than 30 years. Now she's received the National Aboriginal Achievement Award, and she and her closest friends couldn't be happier.
Well, it's pretty exciting to go there and meet all the other people as well that got the award, and they really entertained us, and then they get at a luncheon, and they gave us some medals, and then in the evening they had a kind of a performance, like where they had dancers and singers, and then part of it they presented us with this trophy.
Children, if I give away, that's what I can to you.
I know that you're a person who has taken many children under her wing. You've shared with many people a way of life, and I like that.
She comes from a long line of carvers. Her mother's side of the family have been doing it since she can remember, but none of them were able to show off their work. In the first half of the 1900s, Aboriginal artwork was outlawed by the federal government, and so Freda began her career. It was a time when many would-be artists in the Northwest, like she and her student Dempsey Bob, were just beginning to rediscover their traditions.
Freda and I, we did a lot of teaching in the early 70s in Alaska, and we were always trying to promote our art and save it too, because we came very close to losing it all. And like Freda was one of the threads at that time for our people.
It wasn't easy going for Freda. Although she jumped at the chance to learn how to carve, even she admits her first mask needed some work.
Well, the first time I tried the carving knives, we made our own tools, and then I tried my own tools, and then I didn't really know what was good carving wood or not. And anyway, my husband had just cut down a cedar tree that was really not good carving wood, and then with my first knives I made, it was real hard to do because I didn't have the right kind of wood. And then once I got to carving like with alder wood or birch or something like that, it was a lot easier. And then, once I had better tools, because the first time you make tools, you're not going to make the best ones.
Some of the tools she uses are much like the ones her ancestors used, and some that are much more sophisticated. But she says it's not only the tools that help create good work, it's good teaching and even good genetics.
Some of my mom's cousins and that, they used to say, because our ancestors used to do it, well, they have sayings like they say, oh, your ancestors are guiding your hand, but could be just inborn. Nowadays, scientists would say that you have a tendency to that because it was born, you had ancestors that did that.
She fine-tuned her work during the 1970s, and by the 1980s, her work was included in an exhibition called Legacy, Tradition and Innovation in Northwest Coast Indian Art at the Royal British Columbia Museum. It later toured several countries. She also helped create several totem poles from Prince Rupert to Kitsim Kalem. Even now, she says, she'll continue to carve as long as she's able to. But many say that her greatest legacy is in her students.
I think, for Freda, it's about time, because she did a lot of work, and she made a big contribution to not just one tribe or one area, but it's all over the Northwest Coast in the north, and that's really good, because teaching is like planting seeds, and that's what she did. Good seeds.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. British Columbia's first provincial park was founded in 1911. Today, BC Parks contains 13.5 million hectares of protected land, with more than 100 parks and protected areas created since 2001. Currently, parks and protected areas account for 14.26% of British Columbia's land base. Let us return the archives to Ross Lake.
It's midweek in late March, and snow isn't all you'll find at Ross Lake Provincial Park in the Hazeltons. 3 groups of people are here enjoying the afternoon, including Chris Fuller-Blaby, her daughter Samantha, and her friend Tyler. Chris was alarmed to hear the provincial government is withdrawing services from this park.
I was really upset because I felt that we're a small community, and how much can they take away from us? This is all we have. I mean, we don't have a pool, we don't have anything for the kids to go to, like the bigger centers. So I just felt that this is all we have, and how can you take it away from us?
In the summertime, people come here to swim, lie on the beach, and fish, all with the peace and quiet of electric motorized boats only on the lake. But in winter, there's lots to do too.
In the wintertime, like right now, people would come out here and do ice fishing, or there's a nice trail around the lake. It takes about 45 minutes. So they come out for picnics on a nice day, and they just go skating on the ice, and people take the initiative and actually clear a spot to play hockey with the kids and just run around on the ice and have fun.
The government says it's targeted parks with low usage. This one might not attract swarms of tourists, but Hazelton area residents prize the spot, and they won't be giving it up.
It's probably our primary recreation area here. On a good hot summer day, that park, half the people from Hazelton, the Hazeltons collectively use that park.
When New Hazelton Council heard about the province's intentions for the park, it swung into action and will be meeting with parks officials about taking over the site services itself.
Initial numbers we have that the province was spending about $7,000 a year there on maintenance. They had a contractor looking after the place. Well, he looked after some other parks as well, but they've kind of figured $7,000 for that park. So if we add some volunteer labor and our town staffs and things like that, I'm sure that we can do as good a job as they've done in the past, and we are determined we're going to do that.
I think there's enough interest in the community that we should be able to form some kind of committee to keep the lake going and keep it clean for the children. So I think it's great that the town is doing something. I think there'll be lots of people willing to volunteer to help.
Ross Lake is just one of 45 parks the provincial government is withdrawing services from. Others in the Skeena region are Red Bluff and FLF Wilson near Burns Lake and Exjamsix west of Terrace. And Prince Rupert and Port Edward are losing one of the 2 provincial parks in their area, Diana Lake, about the only nearby spot to go swimming. Municipal officials are questioning the closure, especially since it costs just $20,000 a year to maintain Diana Lake.
I understand the province is in a cash crunch. However, there are some times when you have to assess on what you're doing and what the impacts are. Cutting Diana is absolutely an appalling move, because it's the one place where people can go and have access. Unless you have a boat in Prince Rupert, and not all the citizens have that, you're pretty well limited to Diana if you want to go out for a day with your kids having a picnic and whatever. This is a really excellent spot, and it's inappropriate to close it.
Green says there is some hope the park can be saved through sponsorships.
A few of us have been getting together discussing that. There's local government is having some discussion, but if we could get some sponsorship of from the corporate side, or perhaps one of the unions might like to step up and help out, I think that would be terrific. But we're exploring that at this time. We'll know just where we are early in the month after we have meetings with the provincial officials on this issue.
In search of places to slash the provincial deficit, the minister in charge of BC Parks defends the decision to cut spending on certain parks.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The Ministry of Forests, Lands, and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development is responsible for the stewardship of provincial Crown land and natural resources and for the protection of BC's archaeological and heritage resources. Let us return to the archives as then Minister Murray shares the decision-making process.
One of the main criteria was how much does it cost the ministry to provide those services, and it tended to be lower use parks that have a highest cost of taxpayer dollars. So this particular set of 45 parks accounts for about 3% of the campsites, but 25% of the government funding that goes into park services.
Murray adds the public will still be able to access the parks from which the services are being withdrawn. That is, as long as access doesn't cause problems.
If these areas are used irresponsibly and they end up being trashed or creating health and safety hazards, we may have to consider whether that campsite should still be accessible, or that park. I'm pretty confident in the consciousness of people to clean up behind themselves, and I'm not expecting there to be that problem.
Murray emphasizes her ministry will continue to provide more than 250 camping and day use facilities. But changes are coming to those parks too. For instance, facility operators will be charging campers for firewood this year. And interpretive programs have been canceled. At LaKels Lake near Terrace last year, young and old could enhance the enjoyment of their visit by learning about bugs, butterflies, and bears. But provincial parks are not the only things on the chopping block. The Forests Ministry will no longer manage and maintain hundreds of recreation sites, like the Butsy Rapids hiking trail. Butsy is another site in the Prince Rupert area, popular with tourists and locals.
Well, definitely the most popular trail in Prince Rupert. So it's pretty important to the locals. The trail is in good shape. I'd say we average probably about 10,000 users a year on this trail. It'll probably go up again because we've got a good portion of it gravel, but without maintenance, the trail will fall apart over a few years.
The Forests Ministry is just completing upgrades to the trail, but more work will be needed if it's to survive.
The type of work they're going to have to do is continue graveling the trail. Right now the trail is, the sections that haven't been graveled have gotten pretty muddy. The old trail bed is wood chips. It just doesn't last, and it's very hard to maintain. Our problem a couple of years ago is we didn't have a parking lot to bring in the gravel. We got that a couple of years ago, so it's been a long plan for our district to get this trail graveled. So we'll have about 2 kilometers done by the end of this year. So there's another 2 kilometers to finish up on it.
Lam Yorski says further work on the trail will cost about $10,000 a year over the next 5 years. Ministry staff hope a community group steps forward to keep the trail open. Community involvement will be required to keep hundreds of such trails and forestry campsites available around BC. For some, local organizations already take a role. Snowmobilers maintain the Sterling Mountain Trails north of Terrace. Almost half the Calam District's trails currently fall under some agreement with local recreation groups. For others, the ministry will continue to maintain some during a transition period this year, but you'll have to check to find out which ones. Red Sand Lake north of Terrace is one popular site whose future is in question. It was opened in 1991 and includes camping and trails through a demonstration forest. The site will be open to the public this summer, but whether users themselves will have to maintain it or a contractor will look after it for part of the season is up in the air. Hikers, campers, sport fishers, and other recreationalists are waiting for answers as local government staff wait for more direction from Victoria. And at parks like Ross Lake, families like this are hoping too many changes don't spoil a highlight of living just where they do in beautiful BC.
Well, anybody that hasn't been to Ross Lake, you haven't lived.
You know you have. Okay, and...
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
She started skiing as soon as she could walk. Nicknamed Tiger because of her go-for-it attitude and her aggressive style of skiing, Nancy Green won 17 Canadian Ski Championship titles and the United States Championship 3 times. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives to see the next generation of skiers.
Well, there's some pretty nice and fast skiers here. Like, lots of people from around all of BC, so there's lots of fast kids from everywhere, like Whistler, and even from Terrebonne, there's some fast skiers. So it's from everywhere there's fast skiers, so it's pretty cool.
Often reaching speeds of up to 100 kilometers an hour, athletes from across the province hit Shames Mountain last Thursday through Sunday for the K2 Provincial Challenge, racing Super G, Giant Slalom, and Slalom in hopes of placing well, some in hopes of qualifying for the upcoming Whistler Cup. Now, the Whistler Cup is an international alpine competition that showcases the future stars of World Cup alpine ski racing. 321 competitors aged 11 to 14 from 18 different countries.
We've seen some kids rip through. We've got a speed trap. One kid came through at 82 clicks. That was in the slow part, so we do a little fine-tuning, as they say, as far as the radar is concerned. We had one individual catch an edge and lose it. Unfortunately, had to be carted off the hill in a stretcher. Non-life-threatening from what we understand, but took a pretty bad bounce.
Sounds good. And tell us again, what kind of stepping stone could this event possibly be for these kids?
Well, from here, the qualifiers from here go to the Sierra Wireless Whistler Cup in Whistler in 2 weeks. This is the first junior international competition that they would be up against, with teams coming in from Russia, Austria, France, Germany, that sort of thing. At that point, they are sort of checked out by the coaches. They would go into the FISP program when they came out of K2. They would work there for a bit. They could then go to the BC team, which would then put them into the Pontiac and Nabob Cup, which is the next step towards the World Cup circuit.
Taking a look at the results now, first off, checking who placed within the top 3 in men's Super G. Now, the top 3 in each division have qualified for the Whistler Cup. Corey Rebley, who placed first during practice on Thursday, kept his speed up and earned the top spot once again. 2 Grouse Mountain athletes placed second and third, and Ryan Montsees of Shames came in 22nd. Turning to women's Super G results now, the top female is Catherine Cape of Whistler. Alex J. Ballard has also qualified for the Whistler Cup, as has another Whistler racer. If we look a little further down the list, in 9th place is Stacy Blake of Shames Mountain. In men's giant slalom, Whistler was represented very well once again, and this time a Vernon racer made it into 2nd place, and Paul Greenwood of Grouse Mountain placed 3rd and will also head to the Whistler Cup from April 4th to the 7th. The GS racers were faced with thick fog on Saturday. In fact, instead of doing 2 runs, these results are based on a single run. The races had to be canceled because the fog was a safety concern. And checking the girls' side, Mount Washington's Alex J. Ballard had the best time, followed by Catherine Cape again, and another Whistler athlete. And once again, Shames' Stacy Blake placed within the top 10, coming in 6th overall. And finally, Sunday's slalom races were wonderful as the sun was shining all day. Apex's Ian Cumming placed first, followed by Kamloops' Corey Rebley and Peter Collins. And on the female side of things, a Whistler racer proved to be the best yet again, followed by Karina Mills of Big White and Jillian MacArthur of Whistler, and Terrace's very own Stacy Blake placed 6th. And what's the attraction for the kids who are involved in this sport, and how did Terrace and Shames do as host city for the challenge?
I like skiing, and I don't know, I like going fast without getting in trouble from ski patrols, so this is a place to do it.
The mountain's great. Terrace is really nice. I've never been to Terrace before, and
The mountain here is really like our mountain. It's sort of smaller than other mountains, and it's just really nice. The snow is really nice. Well, it's really time-consuming, and yeah, you have to be really committed to it because it's a lot of training and stuff. But I think it's the funnest sport, so I don't care.
I just like the skiing, and it's fun getting speed up and stuff. Like, I like going fast.
I think I've been skiing for about 5 years, and I've only skied Seymour, and this is my last year skiing K2. And it's just really fun. Really, really fun. I really like it.
Oh, they've done really good. I liked how they've done it. I like that hill.
Despite the slight problem with the fog on Saturday, organizers, volunteers, spectators, and participants alike say it was a stressful event at times because of the high caliber of the event, but it was an excellent time had by all. And those of you who were able to take in some of the action as it happened caught a glimpse of some of alpine ski racing's future.
Just a whisker away from the US-Canadian border today, an American seine boat set its net in search of Fraser River sockeye salmon. The Rena Marie's every move was watched by a phalanx of media and by Coast Guard and television choppers. The net was set illegally, and even though no fish were caught, US Coast Guard and fisheries officials quickly boarded the boat and cited the skipper.
Penalties range up to $100,000 per event. So they're looking at a possible very, very serious penalty.
The protest was staged by the Lummi Indian Nation in Washington state.
We have a right to these salmon. These salmon are not a privilege for this tribe to fish, it's a right.
Lummi Indians were to have fished legally on Saturday, but their fishery was closed by US authorities who said there aren't enough fish. The Lummis say the closure has cost them 400,000 sockeye. Today's protest took place in US waters, so Canada's Department of Fisheries and Oceans declined to send enforcement officers or observers. They said this is primarily a US issue, although the Lummi Indians beg to differ.
Well, we're being denied by both sides of the countries. You know, both Canada and the United States have failed to take action to actually consider the proper sharing of the species between the fleets.
One of the leaders of today's charge was a full-blown celebrity. Russell Means, a leader of the American Indian movement and veteran of Wounded Knee.
Of course it involves Canada, because this is an international contract called a treaty that's covered by all the covenants of the UN and of Canadian law.
Means and James set a second illegal net from a battered wooden skiff. They too were cited by fisheries authorities. Then the boat was towed ashore and set on fire, a symbolic act, but one which seemed to get through to a key American official.
But they certainly have a point in terms of the frustration that fishermen feel from not having the governments of the two countries agree upon a fair share of the fish.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection of his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.